Alright, so... Oh, Guinea-Bissau. Number one. O maior país. So, this is going to be a bit of a presentation about the country of Guinea-Bissau. This is a bit higher production value than the country of Mauritania. Although, it's a pretty low bar. And honestly, it's not that good of a presentation. And I'm not going to talk about everything. Also, evidently, I am... This feels like a weird thing to specify. I'm not from Guinea-Bissau. I don't think most people look like this. I think that's mostly the lighting, though, but alas. Now, we'll see. I'm just going to say the stuff that I find interesting about Guinea-Bissau. But it is a pretty cool place. Or, it feels a bit weird to say, but alas. Okay, let's go. So, Joel asked for some basics. This is some basics of Guinea-Bissau. So for those of you that don't know where Guinea-Bissau is located, it's right here, right on the western edge of Africa. Here is Morocco, by the way. This is Algeria, for those that don't know anything about African geography. It's a very small country, about 2 million population. It's the capital of Bissau. So for those, you can see that this is Guinea. This is also referred to as Guinea-Conakry because of the capital. So there's 4 Guineas in the world. You got Guinea-Bissau, Guinea-Conakry, Equatorial Guinea, and Papua New Guinea. Now, Papua New Guinea is obviously in Oceania. Equatorial Guinea is right here. This is, yeah. But you distinguish Guinea-Bissau and Guinea-Conakry. Although usually, or interestingly enough, if you talk to people, they always refer to the Guinea that they're from, that they're from, which is Guinea. So I dated she was from Portugal, but her dad was from Guinea-Bissau, and she always said just Guinea, and I was like, what, isn't that confusing? Like, why don't you say Guinea-Bissau instead of just Guinea? Like, if everybody's just saying Guinea, like, how would you know which one you're referring to? But apparently that was obvious. So they got independence in 1974 from Portugal. It's a former Portuguese colony. They used the West African franc, which is along with 8, I think it's 8 countries in total. I don't remember exactly. I think Mali, Guinea, Burkina Faso maybe, but they're probably switching it up pretty soon. Niger might have done it in the past. But interestingly enough, this currency is essentially controlled. This is primarily French-speaking countries in West Africa that use this currency, but the government, the country of France is the ones that are controlling this currency. One of many reasons to say fuck France, because obviously they are manipulating said currency to maximize the amount of value that they can extract and get from their former colonies. I think nowadays it's like supposed to be tied to the euro, but essentially it's just the country of France that are controlling all these countries' currencies, which is a very strange thing for them to be doing under the name of controlling inflation, etc. So they speak Portuguese in Guinea-Bissau. That's their official language, but they also speak Creole or Criollo. Sometimes I've seen it with Kriol, which is a Creole, like a simplified version or a mix between Portuguese and a lot of native languages. Now, all the official things in Guinea-Bissau, like school, if you go to government, you want to renew your passport, that's in Portuguese. But most people, like just regular people, they don't actually know how to speak Portuguese. They speak Creole. And it is kind of difficult to understand them. It's because a lot of the words are, well, from like the native languages, and those are completely unrelated to Portuguese. So you can't understand them if you just know Portuguese. It's sometimes called the Cashew Coast. So you got Ghana, which was referred to as the Gold Coast. You got the Ivory Coast, obviously. Guinea-Conakry was sometimes referred to as the Aluminum Coast, and and the richest country in the world was called the Cashew Coast. So, and this is a bit of the geography. This is a really interesting geography. It's very unique to this region. They have an archipelago, but we will get into this in a bit. So the flag is an interesting one. There's 3 flags here, obviously. This is the flag of Guinea-Bissau. Now, the meaning is the red is for the blood of the martyrs during the revolution. The greenery is for the forest and the mineral wealth, and you have the 5-pointed black star for African unity. This is very inspired by the flag from Ghana. So this I think would be red, green, yellow, red. I don't know, but it's like this. It's the same colors and the stars in the middle. So this one is for the African Party for an independent Guinea and Cabo Verde. Obviously in Portuguese, this acronym makes sense. This is Cabo Verde's old flag. So back in the day, when they were fighting for independence, there was actually one essentially unity between Cabo Verde and Guinea-Bissau. So this was the party that was trying to fight for independence in both countries. And when they reached independence, this was the country for Bissau. This was the country, this is the flag for Cabo Verde. So they're a very tight relationship, those two countries. Now, in terms of demographics, there's quite a few of them. Balanta is the biggest ethnic group. Fula, Manjaco, Mandinka, Papel also. Now, Fula, Mandinka, Balanta have their own languages. So those three languages are spoken in Guinea-Bissau as well, aside from Portuguese. And the Creole has kind of emerged from these three languages primarily. So a lot of like loan words and things like this. Now, there's also the Bisagos Islands, which is, here. They have their own ethnic groups, kind of, because they're very isolated, as you can imagine. And interestingly enough, there's a couple of fellas all the way from China. So, for those that don't know, Macau is a former Portuguese colony. And there was some people that went from Macau, from Macau, that ended up in Guinea-Bissau. So you got Chinese people speaking Portuguese in Guinea-Bissau, which is, we live in a globalized world, and you get funny stuff like that sometimes. The fact that Macau is a Portuguese colony is one of the wackiest things I know. It's very bizarre. Alas, this is so sensitive. Okay, so this is the archipelago of Pijagos. So this is, how does this work? This is what it looks like, kind of. This is a painting, but there's a bunch of large islands and some of the smaller islands. Now, it's actually like a UNESCO protected site for the biodiversity. It's a really interesting place, actually, really, really interesting, because it's very isolated, as you can imagine. And generally, if you go to island cultures, like, you're always going to find some cool stuff, because they're so isolated, and they got their own thing. Also, I think it does differ quite a lot between the islands. So these two gentlemen are from the islands. I mean, look at this. This is a good photo. Look at this guy's physique too. This guy's jacked. Oh well. They got hella turtles. They got hella peoples on all these islands. Well, not that many people, but all kinds of types of people. They have over 500 bird species. A lot of drugs, but we'll get into it. And they got hella women. So this is an interesting quirk, or not a quirk, but it's an interesting aspect of this region, the archipelago. So they're controlled by the matriarchs. So this relates to, I think, their creation myth, that you had God created the island. I think it was this island, and that was the whole world. And then there was a guy and a woman, and they had 4 daughters, and these 4 daughters kind of were assigned big tasks to do. I don't remember the whole story. But yeah, so that's part of the reason why, like, essentially women is seen as leaders within this culture. And that's interesting, right? You look at the creation myth of a culture, and you can kind of see how that dynamic is portrayed. I mean, obviously the creation myth of, like, let's say the Bible, where you have Adam and Eve is a subset of Adam. It's just like made out of his rib or whatever. Doesn't really feel like they're equals, Whereas in this case, so like that kind of leads to a patriarchy that we have today, or historically at least. Whereas here you have the creation myth of essentially saying that women are the leaders and controllers of things, and you end up with a matriarchy. So that's very interesting. Let's see. Oh, I shouldn't use the... Okay, so the geography here it's very wacky. I don't think I have any text here. Yeah. So some of these slides are a bit barren because I feel like I just wanted to make the video. But there's a lot of islands. So this is a big, big river. As you can imagine, I think if you look at this one, you get, like, there are so many small rivers that the problem is this is a big part of their economy as well, or there's a big problem for their economy. If they want to ship things to Senegal, for example, you have to essentially, you can't drive north. You have to drive inland. So if you're here, you can't just drive like this. You have to go like this around the whole thing because there are no bridges. Because I don't remember exactly why. I don't know if it's the rivers that kind of increase in size a lot with the tides, or like they flood and stuff like this. But it's really hard to build rivers there, and there are no bridges, and there are not really all that many bridges. And so land travel, cart-based travel, takes forever, and you need a lot of investments, foreign infrastructure investments, to make this to grow the economy. But they don't have any money. Oh yeah, because they don't have any money, right? Because they don't have any damn bridges, and so they can't build new bridges because they don't have any money to make money. So it's a very tricky situation, and so they rely on foreign investments to build these bridges, and the country's riddled with corruption, so there's not many foreign investments being made. Very tricky. But yeah, but there's no other country in West Africa that has an archipelago like this. Like it's very, very unique, which is really interesting. Yeah. Okay. Now we're just kind of speed running. So crack and cocaine from Bissau. Essentially, Guinea-Bissau has turned into a narco state since the last 25 years. What that means is that there's a lot of let's say South American drug smugglers, primarily from Brazil and Venezuela, that are coming, especially Brazil, because they speak the language, right? They ship a bunch of drugs, primarily cocaine and crack, into these islands because the navy is not very strong in Guinea-Bissau. Then they ship it up into the mainland, and then they start pushing it upwards north up to Europe. So this is essentially a huge connection point for the drug trade between South America and Europe. So they connect, because you run on the map, it makes perfect sense, right? Oh my god. Yes. This is doing it, moving itself magically. But yeah, so all the boats are coming here. You stash it in the archipelago, you go here, and then you drive north, and then you go into Spain. So that's a big part of the drug trade, and this is it's a huge problem. Just for context, the head of the navy, like the admiral of the navy of Guinea-Bissau, was arrested for drug smuggling a while back. On every level of government, it's riddled with narcotic related corruption, which is very difficult to deal with, right? Drug trade, or in general criminality, gang culture, is difficult to deal with in any country. I mean, Sweden is a good example, but imagine if every single layer of government was influenced by that type of corruption, and there is no infrastructure to build the economy in any other way. So very, very tricky situation. Yeah, so in terms of food, they have... Oh, no, you can't see the food. Here we see the food. So they have a lot of cashews. And actually, I think 90% of the exports, over 90% of the exports of Guinea-Bissau, this is the economy, obviously, is nut-based products, which is insane to me. They export nuts, and most of it is cashews. So they have a lot of nuts, and a lot of the food that they eat, or one of the more famous ones, are caldos, which is like a stew. And this one, caldo de macara, this is a peanut-based one, with like chicken peanut stew with rice and stuff. But there are some others as well. I actually tried this. This is really good. It kind of tastes like a regular peanut stew, I suppose, but has some other stuff, like you would have okra and things. I think some people might. I don't think you usually eat it with fufu. I imagine it happens, but yeah. Then you have one of the more interesting parts of Guinea-Bissau, or aspects of it. The big boss, o jefe, Amilcar Cabral. So he was the essentially leader of the revolution of Guinea-Bissau. He was born in 1924, and he was mixed. His parents were one was Cabo Verde and one from Bissau, which is also kind of part of their old relationship. Cabo Verde is generally a very interesting country in terms of its relationship to the rest of Africa. So I don't want to get too much into it because this video is going to be quite long anyways. But it was used as a transit point for a lot of the Portuguese slave trade. So Cabo Verde is an old Portuguese colony, and a lot of the slaves that were taken from Mozambique, Angola, and Guinea-Bissau was shipped to Cabo Verde first, and then onwards to Brazil and other places. So Cabo Verde is an interesting case because it was so many people that were like passing through Cabo Verde throughout history from the other Lusophone former colonies of Portugal. But yeah, so Amilcar Cabral, he actually studied in Portugal agronomy, which is essentially agriculture, for those who not aware, and he founded the African Party for Independence of Guinea and Cabo Verde. So this was the flag that we saw in the beginning with the PAIGC in 1956. And he was a Marxist. He wanted a socialist state, but he wanted like both countries, Cabo Verde and Guinea-Bissau. They were going to be a socialist state together. That was his goal. And he became Marxist during his studies in Portugal. And so then he started 7 years later after the formation of this party, he essentially started the armed revolution in 1963, and they declared independence in 1973, and it was recognized in 1974. But it was a big inspiration point for Angola and Mozambique as well. And one of the most interesting thing, this is way too long, I can't talk about this here, or it's going to take too long about the whole revolution. But I saw there's a really good video, like a mini documentary about that war and about him, Cabral. So he was obviously knew a lot about agronomy, and during civil war and this type of revolution, it's usually very devastating to the people, right? Especially in rural areas, especially in undeveloped economies and things like this. So it was a bit of a guerrilla warfare, fighting out of the jungle essentially, and he made sure that all of his soldiers always helped the farmers, so like if they were into a village to hide, like the soldiers helped farm the food. Like it was just not a theft. Like this guy, he was like, dude, these my brothers, the farmers, like we got to help these guys out. So the soldiers were all taught some basic levels of farming and agriculture, and they made sure to help the farmers instead of just stealing all the food, which soldiers have a tendency of doing. Because he knew that if we just ransacked all the poor peasant farmers during the fight for independence, if we win this war, like there's not going to be anything left because we just sacrificed these people. So we made sure to help them, which I think speaks for his character, definitely. So big up Cabral, the boss. An interesting character in and of itself, and I do recommend that documentary. I don't know if there's that much else to it. There's a lot of thing I didn't really talk about. I will say they have a lot of chimpanzees in Guinea-Bissau. Oh no, this is the wrong one. Oh, this is the one. Yeah, they have a lot of chimpanzees in Guinea-Bissau. I don't know exactly why I know this. But yeah, it's an interesting place. There's a lot of uniqueness, I think, especially a lot of it stemming from the geography, right? You have these islands, and then suddenly all these interesting things happen in terms of how the dynamic plays out, how the country plays out. They're kind of screwed because of their geography, right? For one, infrastructure becomes super difficult because of all these damn rivers, and two, it makes it a perfect place to ship drugs to, which is also very unfortunate because and this is the unfortunate truth about Guinea-Bissau. So if you look at most of the ratings of countries, you will see them not doing so well, usually in the bottom 5 countries in the world in terms of poverty rates, literacy rates, corruption, human development index, all these things. They're doing not so good, and it's really unfortunate, right? Because if you think historically, they have not had much of a chance. You have a place with lots of different ethnic groups. you get colonized for 500 years, ransacked, raped, and stolen. And then afterwards, you fight this bloody independence war. And then afterwards, I've missed this one. Oh yeah, the history. Yeah, that's actually a part. Yeah, so there was a part of the Kingdom of Kabu, which is a part of that Mali Empire for about 400 years. No, why does this PowerPoint sucks? It doesn't show what I want. So then it was a Portuguese colony for 500 years. Then you fight this super bloody war of independence for about 11 years. And then afterwards, and so this was the period between 74 and 80. This was when the two countries, Cabo Verde and Guinea-Bissau, was like joined, essentially. It was ruled by the party of independence for both of them. But then João Vieira made a coup, and he ruled the country for almost 20 years. And I don't think since then there has never been a single president in Guinea-Bissau that has finished his term. That has never happened, as far as I know, up until today. So yeah, it's been kind of chaotic, and like you have like, I don't know, it's just like it's so unfortunate, right? Like, okay, you're colonized and completely ransacked for 500 years. You have a bloody war of independence. You get a dictator, and then you have a bunch of South American drug gangs essentially hijacking the whole country, using it for its own purposes. So it's very unfortunate, but it's really cool. Like they have all these really interesting different ethnic groups, and especially in the Bisagos, you got a lot of interesting cultures, a lot of really fascinating stuff. There's a big I don't know what it is. It was a carnival, something like this. I was watching a big YouTube video about, like, a documentary about the like the dances in the islands. Like these guys were dancing like insane. Like they were kitted out. It looked very dangerous. It was pretty cool. So yeah, there's a bit about Guinea-Bissau. I'm gonna list the song as well, but I forgot it, so I have to pause the recording for one moment. Okay, so music. I remember I forgot about it on the slide. So I have 3 recommendations here. So the first one, these two. So especially Eneida Marta, I think she's one of the most influential or famous artists from Guinea-Bissau. This is a really good song. I can definitely recommend it. I mean, obviously, like how much do I know about Guinea-Bissau, like music from Guinea-Bissau? Like, dude, not that much, man. But it's a good song. I think it's to the extent that I can make that distinction, I think it's somewhat authentic, and I think it's a pretty good song, this one. And Mama Djombo is I think it was a group that was formed in the 60s in Bissau. They actually went to Havana, La Cuba. So, sometimes in the 70s, but they're also a pretty good group. Again, like yeah. Sometimes it can be a bit difficult to find things on Spotify. What I do wonder, though, is that like Spotify has a lot more than you would expect, because I don't think these guys are uploading their own music. At least the Mama Djombo group, they're not uploading their own music to Spotify, I don't think. But Cesária Evora, now you can see right off the bat, she's actually pretty famous. Now, she's not from Guinea-Bissau. She's from Cabo Verde. But given the proximity and the historical ties, and they're kind of best friends in terms of their countries, I think I would be remiss to not mention her, because she is phenomenal. There's a lot of bangers you can see. Yeah, check out Cesária Evora if you happen to have listened to my African playlist. There's a bit of everything there. I need to clean it out, I think. She's definitely originally it was primarily based on like West Africa, but then I found a bunch of other stuff, and I was like, oh well, Angola is like it's not West Africa obviously, but it's like it's Portuguese, and like I want to include this, and it was fun. And then I was like, oh well, Cabo Verde is like, well, at least it's on the west side of Africa, right? And then you would find some banger from somewhere else, and then the playlist just blows up. And then it was more of a mood feel, and I'm like, I might as well throw some Cuban songs in here. It's like, no, that doesn't really fit, or like but you know, it is what it is. But Cesária Evora, I will definitely give a huge recommendation to her. It is a really good artist, but yeah, there's a little bit of Guinea-Bissau, a bit ironic to end it off with a Cabo Verdean singer, but they're good friends, these people. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. This took a lot longer than I expected, or it became a long video, but alas. Peace out.